Hello and welcome to another episode of What Travis Says. Let's talk about Doctor Who Season 10, Episode 3, Thin Ice. And I'm gonna be honest, this episode wasn't my favorite episode just because there was a lot of rehashing of the sort of villain vibe that I got while watching this. I feel like a lot of it has sort of been done before, but there is a lot of great stuff in this episode. Right off the bat, the scale of this episode was great. So many characters, so many extras, so many different sets. The misunderstood monster reveal has happened a few times before, but this time it happened in the middle of the episode instead of at the end. But the episode, I feel, didn't lose any momentum because of it. I liked their use of the practical effects with the creature instead of just entirely CGI, because let's be honest, the CGI wasn't really that great in this episode. But I'm glad that the villain wasn't an alien. I feel like that happens in almost every single Doctor Who episode, especially with episodes that take place on Earth in the past. The villain is some alien who has no humanity, but this time it was a human with no humanity. The teacher-student relationship dynamic is still very much alive, with him trying to make sure that she's learning things along the way. Are the lights organic or electric? It also touches on the idea of changing the past with the butterfly effect. Affecting one little thing in the past could have major outcomes in the future. And there's Bill asking those important questions that a lot of people just don't seem to ever ask about changing the past when traveling with the Doctor. And about how his magic wand is a sonic screwdriver. How is that a screwdriver? What makes it sonic? It also touches on the fact that something amazing can happen in the past, but humans will usually get the wrong headline. I did have some cosmetically practical issues with this episode, like how did the diving gear function without any air tanks or air tubes? But what I found most enjoyable about this episode is how it didn't shy away from talking about serious issues. Remember how I said in last week's episode that now we're past the introduction of the companion episode and their first actual adventure? Now this season can start rolling. Bill finds out that death follows the Doctor everywhere, and she's having a really hard time trying to justify his just seemingly moving on and not caring. I mean, we as the viewers know the truth. He's doing the best he can, and if he can't move on in that moment, other people would die. However, she's brought more in line with his methodology at the end of the episode with the release of the creature and possible murder of other people because of the well-being of the creature. I like how this episode brought up race issues, especially when it comes to time travel, like historic race issues. Remember those times that Martha was brought into the past? Nothing was really said about race, except for in Human Nature when she was a maid and she was constantly being talked down to, but I just assumed that that had to do with the class differences. The Doctor calls out human history for whitewashing and punches a racist in the face. I mean, it was effective. That luxury of outrage monologue was intense, and that speech about how progress should be measured, I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I love Peter Capaldi as the Doctor. Pearl Mackie's performance as Bill is great throughout the entire episode, with her wrestling with the Doctor's ideology about just moving on after people die, and also wrestling with the death of innocence due to some greedy, soulless businessman. And you know that part where the Doctor says, it's time travel, don't overthink it? I feel like that is the mantra of the show's production team this season. Just create a fun show with some epic themes and some great monsters, and don't overthink it. Let's just make some solid episodes and not take ourselves too seriously. Until we get to the vault. Speaking of the vault, I know we get that big sort of little tiny thing at the end, but I feel like that deserves its own video. So let's talk about the vault in tomorrow's video. As for today's video, I want to know what you thought about the episode Thin Ice overall. Let me know in the comments down below. It was a solid episode, but it wasn't one of my favorites. I don't see myself going back and watching it over and over and over. But it hit on some great themes, and there was wonderful character development throughout the entire episode. I feel like this season has been pretty consistent with its mixture of seriousness and fun. As always, my name is Travis. Thank you for listening to what I have to say, and you will see me tomorrow.